What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Clocks Running, the podcast for everything flag football officials. I'm your host, Ant, and with me, where he rightfully belongs, my day one right here, Jacob. I just,
What's going on?
I'm just so sick and tired of insulting you and throwing you under the bus to like try to introduce you every time. You're here every week. You are the co-host. Come on, man.
All right. Well, look, I'm in if you're in, man. I'm here for it. So let's do it. Let's make it fun.
I mean, as long as your candle doesn't go out and you got the horse and buggy ready to go, if you have an emergency, I'm good to go.
Hey, man, the donkeys are outside doing circles with the wheel, trying to keep the power on. So we're good to go for at least another 30 minutes.
Okay, cool. All right, perfect. Hey man, so we got San Diego Flag Fest coming up here in 2 weeks, and so we wanted to just bring some attention to the West Coast. I know they're not necessarily always talked about when it comes to national tournaments and who are the powerhouses, but I think some of these guys, these guys have something to say about it. So let's bring on our first guest. He's been called the Jay Cutler of flag football. What up, Manny?
Mexican Jay Cutler, man. Mexican Jay Cutler. Right, man. Let's get it right, bro.
Hey, hey, I'm gonna
let
let
me,
you say that.
well, and the only reason that stuck's because someone said, you know what, if he goes to this team, a Packer fan, mind you, goes, he's gonna be the Mexican Jay Cutler of this team, and I sort of just made my own deal, right? Like I owned it. I said, okay, fine, I'll be. So every time if I beat someone, I'd be like, hey, you just got beat by the Mexican Jay Cutler. So that's the background.
There
Big
we go.
six. There you go.
Hey, so Manny, I appreciate you coming on tonight. When I first moved out to Southern California, you were the first league that gave me an opportunity a couple years ago, and it was a format and rule book that I had never heard of. But we'll get there. I want to just give you the opportunity as a new guest to share your origin story. Where did you get into flag football, and what's brought you here today?
Well, I've been playing for. I'm gonna date myself here, but I've been playing for like 25 years. Uh, so it's been a long time coming. I think that the rules in SoCal have always been sort of different than the national rules, which creates a pros and cons as far as the nationwide format goes. The way I started was, I much like you guys, I started reffing in other leagues, and then I started running certain fields, and then COVID hit, right? And everything shut down. You couldn't do anything. And I personally, I love the game. I mean, I'm 48. I'm still playing, and I just wanted to keep the games going. And at that time, there wasn't any organization that was giving any permits. It was literally like you would have to just find a park and hope that they didn't shut you down. I mean, that was the unfortunate part about it, right? I wanted to just get people outside. I wanted to get people playing. I wanted people going. So we ended up, me and Noah and Javi at the time, we just said, let's just find parks, and that's what we did. We literally would go to like a park, try to play as much football as we could, and sometimes they would come down, say you guys can't gather, and other times it'd be like, hey, go ahead and play. And so we ended up just starting that way, and from that play we just sort of ramped it up because we always had an idea of what we wanted in a league. I mean, we've all played in leagues, and I knew, when I was first coming up, there was really only one league, right? It was Top Gun at the time, and there wasn't any other league available. So what you saw was what you got. There was no other options. Even then, I was like, there's better ways of doing this. You just didn't have the resources. Now here we are, 20, 25 years later. I mean, nowadays you could everyone with an iPhone is a professional videographer, right? Anyone, everyone's a professional photographer or whatever. But it's a matter of getting all those resources done and getting the best personnel that you can. And from there, we grew from, just playing on, as someone once said, you guys will never succeed because you guys play on dirt fields and you guys will never get. And here we are now with over 700 players in our league. We have a women's division. We have three divisions: Division 1, Division 2, Division 3. So, this game is getting more popular than ever. Before there was a clear distinction of people saying, "Oh," much like when, Hoosh said, right? Hoosh said, "Hey, I'm basically better than Patrick Mahomes in flag football," and everyone, all these quote unquote real flag real football players start chiming in. But the fact is that it's a growing sport, and people want to continue to play. And a lot of these kids that are coming through high school that come from a 7-on-7 camp, they're sort of used to it. So it's almost like a smooth transition. You're seeing the women's game explode everywhere because it's almost at every high school now. So it's just been it's as long as you give, as long as you whatever you put into it, this is what you're going to get out. So as long as you put your love and heart into it, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. So I know in Southern California, like you brought up, there's kind of a unique format to it. There's a lot of organizations that kind of play that format. So what makes your league unique?
I would say the fact that from the start we basically wanted to provide not only the best environment, but the best media and just the best environment. We throw weekly 2, sometimes 3 open scrimmages, meaning that we basically go to a park, we set up, and we invite the whole community just come out and play. And so, you're a new player, right? I don't know anyone. I want to be on a team, but it's not little league. They can't just put me on a team. These are grown men playing, and some of these teams, as you guys know, they've been playing together for years, and not just going to let some stranger. But you go there, they play, and they're like, "Oh crap! Now I can see where they can say." So they end up joining a team, where they start bringing their own guys, and so we just basically create a very good community. I mean, you've been at our air raid bowls. I mean, the turnout there is crazy. I mean, the last one we just had, there was like over 100 people there. And for especially for rec league, we're a rec league, like we don't play for money or anything, like. That's a good turnout. It's a good community based. I also got to give props to our media team. We found some really good media people that basically highlight a lot of the plays that these guys go. Because let's be honest, we're here we are. We're in a social media world, right? What's the saying the kids say? If they didn't record it, did it happen? And so if you're not investing the resources in putting out those highlights and putting out those great plays and making everyone feel like, hey, listen, I'm looking forward to Sunday because not only are we going to see the Cowboys kick ass, yeah, right, that's not going to happen, but but at the same time, go there and I'm going to have a good time with my team. I'm going to get some highlights. I'm going to get my stats. I'm going to get 2 games. Like that part becomes part of the package. And so, as a league organizer, we're always looking for ways to better ourselves and just get more players involved. And that's been basically, yeah. I mean, like I said, we're just the community itself has allowed us to grow the word of mouth.
So what inspired you to have the ref jerseys sleeveless?
That was Joey's idea. Joey Prodigy came up with some. First of all, we're in Cali, okay. I don't know if you know this, okay, but we can wear shorts here like 11 months out of the year, probably even 12. I mean, it's just hot. I mean, we're just coming off a weekend. There was 106 degrees, which is obviously hotter than normal. But now that you live here, you understand the weather, okay? He came up with a sleeveless design. At first, I was like, but then I sort of got it because I mean, it's a hot. You're out there, right? You're refing, 6, 7 games. It's a little hot. It was something unique. I said, if it doesn't work, like anything else in life, right? Like, hey, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll go back to whatever. But I thought I liked it, and the refs liked it, I mean, so, and you could always wear a shirt underneath anyways, make it long sleeve. But I got to give up. Joey does a great job of doing most of our logos, most of our, merch. And I got to give him props for that one.
All right, so I just want you to talk a little bit about your number one, the most important ref that you have there, Tim. Tell me a little bit about Tim.
Tim the Toolman Taylor. Well, if you believe, first of all, he's the loudest ref I've ever known. Tim's gonna be there because all you're gonna hear is bang bang, okay, bang bang Niner gang. So it's like, okay, Tim's in the house, But no, we loved it. Tim has been with us from day one. I mean, the first time that Tim came out, and he came out with D Money, his partner in crime. It was literally a small tournament that we had in Brea. It was raining, and he was literally coming out there with us. And I'm thinking, okay, like, let's be quite honest. A lot of people always want to talk. I mean, come on, you guys know. Everyone wants to ref, right? Everyone thinks that they're going to be a great ref. Everyone thinks that they know all the rules. And much like playing quarterback, you put someone out there to be a ref, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, it's a little bit different, isn't it? And not everyone can be a ref. I will say this, like, you need to have a certain demeanor. You need to understand that it's something that you look at and say, hey, I take it seriously. That's what we have certain things like, our refs cannot be out there wearing flip-flops or wearing Crocs. I want them to say, hey, because you're going to be going up and down. It sends, if you're not dressed appropriately, it sends the message that you don't really care, and that's the last thing we want. But Tim showed up there in his rain weather boots. It was raining the whole time. He put in his time. He put in his fight, and I was like, you know what, this guy, all right. And one thing about Tim is that he will always listen to feedback. He never gets to, there's times that he gets loud and he might say this, but whatever feedback you give him, he will literally take it and incorporate it. He won't get defensive. He won't think you're attacking him personally, which sometimes that's why you can tell if they're going to be a good ref or a bad ref. He always listens to it. He always asks questions as far as, hey, how do we want to call this and want to call that? And he's a guy that we could depend on any time of day. Whenever he's not reffing nationally, he's with us 100%. And he brings his family along. So like I said, like the whole league knows him. He's just part of our family.
Yeah. Last year in San Diego, I got teamed up with him, and I just remember, in the back of my head, I was just thinking about the fact that, okay, I know how loud Tim can get. I know there's going to be teams from LA, and they're going to want favoritism from him or whatever. At the time, he had gotten surgery on his wrist or
Yeah,
something
his
like that.
wrist. Yeah.
So he had to keep his hands elevated the entire time, which was throwing everybody off because his hands up, and they're like, "Why's your hand up? Is that touchdown? Like, is that 3 points? What are we doing here?" So, but the first game that we had, it was a team from out of town. They didn't know Tim at all, and there was just an interaction between a player and Tim got loud. And at halftime, I went up to Tim. I was like, Tim, we just gotta shut that down. They're gonna try to pick at you. They're gonna go. We do not want every game to be like this. And he
Yeah.
did. He took that feedback, and the rest of the day was great.
Yeah.
The next day, there was a fight that broke out on another field, and it was the funniest part of the weekend. He's got his hand up and he's got his whistle like he's back at the club in the 1980s, like just.
Yeah. That's Tim.
So,
And it's funny. I'll tell you a funny story about that. Is that you guys ref together that tourney, and we had several teams go down there to play, right?
Yeah.
So when they came back, I basically stayed and run the ship because we had our games. A lot of our players, like for example, on the 22nd, all our D1 teams are going to probably head down there to play. And I come back. They come back on Monday. I'm like, hey, how'd it go? Right? How'd everything go? They're like, well, bro. They're like, here we are thinking that we're going to a national tournament and we're going to play different teams and we're going to have different refs. Guess who our refs were? And I'm like, what? It was Ant and it was Tim. He's like, so basically, it was an air raid game. They even ended up playing. I think it was an ARC playing Showtime, which was two
yeah,
air raids.
yep.
You're like, what the hell, man? Like, so yeah, I was like, that was pretty funny though.
Yeah,
that
for sure.
was my first interaction with Tim, and he like I said, Ant and Tim are on a field. They're 4 fields over from where the fight breaks out. Tim runs over, arm raised, tooting his whistle, and just like not getting in the middle of anything. And I'm finally just like, the whistle's gotta stop.
Yeah.
Nah, Tim's fun though. Tim's a lot of fun.
So, Manny, I know you and me had lots of conversations about the growth of flag football and just kind of the direction things were going, and I know I remember talking to you about if there's an opportunity to get a women's league going, and if you can get fives going because that's what everyone plays nationally. So, what made you finally make the decision to get women's going this past summer?
Yeah. Again, we're a team here. And with that portion of it, I know Noah Diversely and Joseph Amaya, I had my hands full with the men. And I said, okay, if you guys are going to do this, then you guys need to make it your baby and stuff like that. But, I also got to credit because it was their idea, but ultimately none of that would have been possible if not for Turbo from Top Shelf and Becca, who were able to sort of rally, a lot of the teams together. And I said, well, let's make it happen. We're going to run it. We're going to run it the air raid way, meaning that we're going to put all the resources behind it that we can. And then we're going to go ahead and do it. And we ended up running a team. We actually, we ended up getting 2 free agent teams, meaning that we got like 12 brand new players.
Awesome.
And we got them in, and we ended up running a 6-team league. Well, we fast forward to the next season. All of a sudden, we're at 8, and I got to give credit to, because Amaya ran that season basically by himself with the help of some refs. But the feedback we got was incredible. I mean, like I said, for us to be able to pick up 30 brand new off the street players was in itself good. And like I said, it was just a matter of just for us to putting the resources behind it and saying, let's do this. And we got our 3rd season coming up in October. We already have 6 teams signed up, and I just opened it 2 hours ago.
Nice.
We're hoping to get 10. It's going to explode. I mean, several of the coaches that, several of the players that are in our league, they also coach, in flag football, like Chris Estrada and Juice Giles, even Tim is a coach now. So you're just seeing this natural growth of the game, especially at the women's level where, and you just saw, the world championships. I mean, I'll be honest with you, the women's game was so much better than the men's, just because, let's be honest, the men's game was a blowout early, but the women, the effort and what they put into the game is just as much as the men. And I got to put respect for that. They just go out there and they just battle. Our championship game last season came down to literally the last 15 seconds. We had about 100 people there, and it was just a good, awesome game. I even take it, I don't want to say it's a good women's game. It's just a good game, period. And like I said, you're getting better athletes come through. I think the big thing for the future is going to be what makes a good, what kind of athlete makes a good flag football player, because that's what you're going to end up seeing is that, is some of these players going to start developing? And, right now what you're seeing is a lot of, okay, well, I play soccer, so I also play flag, or maybe I play volleyball, I also play flag. Pretty soon, what I think is going to start happening is they're not going to go in there being soccer players first. They're going to be in there going flag football players first, and then play these other sports. And this is going to, it's, can't wait for the Olympics,
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have plans to maybe turn men's into fives eventually, or are you kind
We
of
have
set
that in
on?
we have that in the works. The biggest thing with that is like a lot of the guys here in SoCal, that's not a natural format. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I for some of the guys, for some of the elite level players, it is because they've traveled before and they've done that. But a lot of the guys that are just coming up through rec, that's not the format that is basically inherently that we play here. For the biggest reason, it's seeming that in many ways they feel like it eliminates the big guy out of the offense, if you know what I mean, right? Like if it's non-contact, you literally put the best 5 athletes on the field, and there's going to be no blocking whatsoever, so on and so forth. And so by having the extra guy and having blocking with a rusher, it sort of still adds an element of, okay, we could, hey, we have a rec league, let's put Ant at rusher, whatever, stuff like that, but we're definitely building into it, or, will be something that we develop in the off season with tournaments and start it that way. And hopefully it'll grow. And, the future for 2025 will probably eventually be where we have not only 3 divisions, but we have different formats at different times.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like I said, I came into that and I had never seen that format before, or that rule book. The things that were just, kind of mind blowing to me, the fact that there was no jumping allowed, that the snap was live, that still is, is crazy to me.
Talk to me about that. Talk to me about that thought process there. I'm curious about this.
The only time there could be a fumble in flag football for us is on the snap to the quarterback. And it rarely happens, but it does happen. And at that point, that's the only time where it's like if you snap it to me and I drop the ball, or it goes over my head, or it falls on the ground, it's the only time that's live. And we've sort of kept that rule. I think in the 5 years that we've played as a league, I think maybe I remember 3 times when there was a fumble recovery. But for the most part, it doesn't really play a part. We just, it's just a different deal. Like I said, like the jumping part was more of a safety issue for us. I think sometimes people think that they're professional hurdlers. Some players can obviously do it. Some of our less athletic players, not so much. And the last thing we want is someone just sort of colliding with another human being and accidentally bumping them in that sense. So, it's something that players have come to us and say, "Hey, why don't you add it?" And we'll think about it in the future. But for right now, it's sort of like that's what we liked it that way because it distinguishes between the sixes format that we play rather than the five non-contact national style.
Yeah. Have you allowed jumping in women's?
Yeah, they do it, but it's not as frequent though. Only
Yeah.
it's not as frequent or whatever. And trust me, don't get me wrong. When the guys see all the highlights and they see the women jumping, okay, the first thing I get like 30 DMs saying, "Hey man, how can we let them jump?" It's a different format. Okay, it's a different format. So yeah.
So you ever had any like safety issue or like had anybody get hurt with the live fumble?
No.
No.
Like not that has never really happened. I mean, like I said, you picture all these people just jumping after the ball. Usually the quarterback would just get it, or it's never happened. I mean,
Right.
so luckily, knock on wood.
Gosh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few other rules I just want to bring up just to talk through. Explain your onside kick process.
Okay, onside kicks, you get at the 5 yard line. You got to get to the midfield. It's basically going to be a 30-yard completion. You get one play. I feel like it adds an element of be able to come back, especially in flag. I mean, I know 30 yards sounds like a lot. Like, see, again, this is like we all are familiar with flag. The average person, you tell them 30 yards, they're like, "Oh my God, it's impossible." I was like, "Dude, have you never played flag football?" Like, I mean, it's difficult. Don't get me wrong, but it should be difficult, right? I mean, it's an onside, but at the same time, it happens much more often than it does per se in a NFL game or college game with the onside, which I feel is literally impossible. I mean, I think last time I saw stats, it was like 5% of onsides were actually recovered, which means like it's like you might as well. What does that mean? But here it extends the game, it extends the play. You're only allowed two, so you can't keep on going for onsides every single time. So you just have to manage it. Some teams they've incorporated it as part of their strategy, especially like toward the end of a half, saying, "Hey, we're going to go for an onside. Worst case scenario, if we don't get it, they have it at the 5. They score quickly, and we got enough time to get a score."
So then the next one is a team scores, and there's that period of time where the offense can't snap the ball. Correct?
The reason I put that, let me explain to you why I put that. Because I hated I think there's certain things I think are cheese. Okay, like for me, you should be able to come in and if you're watching flag football for the first time, you should be able to say, okay, the rules are different, but I understand it for the most part. For when you score, when there's a change of possession, right? In no form of football is like, for example, like the NFL, college, high school, a team can't just rush onto the field as fast as possible, right? And then snap a ball and then, get them offsides. I always thought that was cheap, especially when you had new teams coming in playing for the first time that aren't familiar with the rules. And then you would have a veteran team and they would just come in and do that. I thought it was always cheese. It led to a lot of people getting upset. I said, okay, from now on, any change of possession, it's like basically 15 seconds for them to change. And that only happens in a change of possession. Okay. If you want to go hurry up the whole time, that's different. But if you just scored a touchdown, your team just scored, they celebrated a 2-point conversion, and they're all happy about it, and they're coming off the field. Then you have another team just rush on as fast as possible and try to do that. I think for me and my eyes, that's cheese. We changed it for that reason. If anything, I feel like it has helped us just sort of keep the game more organized rather than just sort of just having teams before where they would just run on as fast as possible and then just try to catch the other team off guard, which again, it's debatable. Again, we run the league this way because I felt that was best for it. I think other leagues, hey, more power to you, whatever fits. But we just found that was like a good change.
Yeah. Jacob, any other questions you have for me?
So those are the big things. So with sixes, you allow laterals, you allow pitches downfield, all that.
One lateral per play, so you can't and there's a clock too. So you can't hold the ball as a quarterback. Like if I'm the quarterback, I can't like lateral it, and you hold it for like an eternity because the clock is off. You still have basically 5 seconds to throw the ball. You don't throw it after 5 seconds. Where you're at, that's a sack at that spot. So
okay. So wait, so it's a sack at the spot. The ball doesn't go back to the previous.
I take a deep ass drop take a 20-yard. Yeah, you're going to be sacked right there. So again, pocket awareness, a lot of that stuff is there. So it prevents that deal. Even like another here, I'll give you another rule that we changed is you have to run a play, meaning that you can't take a kneel down. Kneel down is considered a sack. It will stop the clock. So if I'm on offense and I have the lead and I'm trying to run out the clock under a minute and I can't take a knee, I have to run a play because it's official clock. If they sack me, the clock stops. So it forces the offense to go ahead, and you can't just do, you have to get a completion.
You got to keep playing.
Yes, you got to keep playing. You can't just run the, whatever. So again, all you're looking for is a 1-yard pass. Once you do that, you're fine. So I got my kid looking at me here like, hey, Dad, are you going to take me? So unfortunately, I got
For sure.
But
hey, so man,
I appreciate everything.
Yeah, man.
Coming in here. Hey, feel free to tag me on all your stuff. I know it gets players all lighted up because they thought they knew the rules, but they actually didn't. So that. But anytime you guys want to have me on, you guys are more than welcome. Anytime you guys want to come down to the games, by all means, come down. And I want to say thank you. I never got a chance because we sort of never said our goodbyes, but I do want to say thank you because you were instrumental in building our league to where it's at today. So I want to say appreciate you and thank you for everything. It's awesome seeing what you're doing to grow your part of the deal because you never got in that from the ref part. You've always gotten just the players complaining and everything. So appreciate everything both of you guys are doing. Feel free to tag me. And thanks a lot for your time, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Thanks, man. All right. Jacob, what do you think? What do you think about this sixes format now that you got a little bit better explanation?
It's different. It's a lot to keep. I mean, I'm sure like going through it and like playing it and being with it regularly, like it's probably second nature to them. But just knowing, how I've always played national rules. When I first started Camel City, I tried to have my own rules and tried to do things my way, and I ended up going back to what nationals rules were. That ended up being what worked best. At the time, we went with FFWCT rules, and then since obviously we've USA flag has since the change was made, that's what we go with.
Yeah, for sure. So so the quarterback has 5 seconds, no matter a rush, no matter a pitchback. 5 seconds, that clock does not stop. Yeah, so that's
the one thing I didn't ask. That's contact, right?
So there's contact essentially on the line. So the center gets his head up. He can move around. He can block. A rusher is coming from 5 yards out. He can't bull rush, so he has to pick a side. And then there's jamming on the line. So it's it's basically like a jam and release kind of thing. So so no downfield blocking, no contact anywhere else. They definitely let the guys play for sure as far as contact downfield and stuff with DBs and wide receivers, hand fight and all that. The field's bigger. I don't remember the exact dimensions. It's probably pretty close to like a 7 field, I would say. Maybe thinner though. It's not as wide. And yeah, I mean the thing with Air Raid is it's so LA, it's so Southern California. They got all the media, they have drones, they pump out so much media. I mean it's unbelievable how much they got going on now. Not only their league, but a lot of the leagues in Southern California. I know cost of living is a lot, but they charge so much for their leagues. It's like there's like a team fee, and then there's a player fee on top of that, and it definitely it adds up. So you are paying for that media for sure. They also do stats. They have 2 officials. It's never more than a 2-man crew, and then they have a stat guy that's kind of downfield, and sometimes he'll help with calls. That gets a little tricky sometimes because if they're paying attention to the stats, they're probably missing what actually happened.
Right.
Oh,
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, so very it's interesting format. I think the league that he spoke of, maybe Pat and George from last week, maybe they would know about Top Gun. I don't know anything about Top Gun, but my guess is that was probably a sixes format as well. And so when that went away, all these other leagues branched up and kind of kept it going. Generally in Southern California, that's what they play: sixes, or they play the really goofy sevens co-ed where female touchdowns don't get you more points. Is the other thing.
Hmm. They're all about
So
the equality, huh?
yeah, so all you got to do is throw the ball at at a girl's feet, and you've absorbed the gender play, and then you're good. That one also has the for the rush. They're coming right off the line, but you go 1, 2, 3, go, and then the rush can go in, or they can use two blitz, or one blitz every 4 downs.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
See,
yeah. So
I don't know. I'm more about, and it's not knocking anybody. I'm more about simplicity.
yeah,
Make it
yeah,
where it's as easy to remember as possible. You don't want to overwhelm the officials. You don't want to overwhelm the players with rules. You just want to make it where it can just. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, this is flag football. Yes, it's a little bit different, but it's still football. It's a variation of football. So you want to kind
yeah,
of have something that they're able to look at and say, okay, this is relatable. I think that's something right now that IFAF's going through with the Olympics. How relatable is the game for people who are going to be watching in 2028? Do they make it, do they change the rules to where it is more in line with what tackle football does and things like that? So that way they get the viewers and it becomes a thing in 2032. Me personally, I wouldn't change a thing, but that's just my personal thoughts. But we'll see what happens.
yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, and me just going into Southern California, I mean, it was just a lot to absorb. Like I said, sixes, sevens. There was a fours league that was very unique in the way that they did things. Very like 22-minute halves or something crazy like that.
It's brutal.
And that's where the flag had to be the front of the flag, had to cross the goal line for it to be a touchdown. It had nothing to do with the ball. So just
All
there
right.
was definitely a yeah. So there was a lot, and I had to kind of balance as far as deciding. Okay, I want to get a lot of looks at flag football. I want to continue to practice and get better as an official. But was I causing myself a lot more issues trying to absorb all these different rule books and then going to a USA flag tournament where everything builds off of five?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there might be a lot of formats, but if you've got the base down, there's just a few variations here and there. Where, in those local leagues, I would do 4 different leagues, and it was 4 different rule books, and there was nothing similar about them at all.
It's
So,
brutal.
yeah.
It's
So
it's good to
after,
get reps, but
yeah,
at the end of the day, it definitely messes with your mind.
yeah. So I think after about 6 months, I was a little bit more, picking and choosing which ones I wanted to do. I definitely tried to do as many tournaments as possible, just because those are a lot more action, and things
Right.
are happening a lot more. So yeah. So it's funny though. Manny said that 11 months out of the year the sun's out. I'm telling you, they have these crazy monsoon months that it is no joke. And I mean, they would not cancel a game for anything. So it would be a Sunday night. And if you remember in Phoenix, the temperature dropped. It's the same thing in California. So not only was it cold, but it was torrential downpour, and nothing was going to stop these games. So,
Right. Hey,
so
well,
their winter.
we were there in March.
Good.
We know what it felt like
Yeah,
in March. It was
yeah,
very
exactly.
cold in March.
Yeah, so their winter season is definitely it's a winter. There's no snow on the
Yeah.
ground. It's not like Colorado where their playoffs are always in the snow. But it's still nothing to mess with. So,
Right.
speaking of local leagues, what do you got going on in Camel City right now?
Hey, man. So this weekend with Camel City, we're starting the fall league back up. We've got 8 of the 11 teams that are signed up this fall. They're playing Saturday. We got Bex coming back. We've got Queen City Bulls. We've got a lot of the big names coming into play. Just trying to get ready for January.
What about Mambas? Mambas are coming back.
Mambas are there. Let's see. Here, I'll give you the team list. All right, so we
Okay,
got
cool.
Bex, we got Mambas, we got Bulls, we've got let's see, where's that right here? We've got Jackals. They're a newer team. We got the Habibis. Those are a brand new team. Bulls, like I said, Mambas, Block Boys, which if you know who the cartel, the 8-man team is, Mambas
Mhm.
and Block Boys are the split. Got a team called Majin. That's a brand new Raleigh team that's coming in. Fruition. They're old school. They've been around forever. Carolina Reapers, who were the most recent 5-man D2 contact champs over in the other organization. You got Infinity, you got Bex, like I said, and then you got another new team called Dim Boys. So it's a lot of a lot of North Carolina teams. That's all North Carolina teams this year or this season. I'm really excited about that though, because a lot of times these guys they talk, and they complain about how much they play each other and all that other stuff. But it's the last few years that everybody's won, it's because they played each other so much.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this season we get a lot of good games, we get a lot of action, and we just see, at the end of the day, it makes everybody better.
Yeah, so I know previous episodes I've asked you guys about any plans to expand into women's and maybe just the market's not out there, but have you had any kind of request or anything to add non-contact to your league?
Here and there, we've offered it a few times in the past and just not had any traction. This being such a strong contact area, that's what these guys prefer. They'll play non-contact when they go to the tournaments, but their preference is definitely contact. Even with women's, this is an 8 women's state. Raleigh has 2 really big leagues. They do really good with the women out there. Back in March, we did a women's tournament where we offered small ball, just to get them exposure and get them games and get them, a different feel. They really enjoyed it. They received it very well. I think probably next year we're probably gonna do something. We'll work some stuff out, but we're gonna try to offer some sort of women's something. Probably if it's not if it's a tournament or whatever it is.
Gotcha. So just kind of changing gears, looking forward to San Diego Flag Fest. What are you excited about for that tournament?
Man, definitely. I've always said for me is I'm always most welcomed. The best teams that to deal with and to work with are out on the West Coast. I always have the best time. The East Coast, and it's probably because I'm so familiar with all the East Coast teams and knowing everybody around here. So there's probably a
Yeah.
little bit of that as well, where people aren't as familiar with me there as they are, out here. But working with those teams, you know, trying to help them get through the tournament, do whatever I can. That's probably what I look forward to the most. And of course,
Yeah.
getting to see my guys from New Dynasty.
There you
Yeah, can't wait to see those dudes.
go. Hey, so I think about as you're talking about familiarity with East Coast teams. I just remember in Tampa last year, I just happened to be on the golf cart with you, and it was like right after the Sixers rec championship, and I just remember a player coming up to you. And clearly, he was from your area, and he immediately went up to you and he was like, "Jacob, you know what you need to do." And, and I'm just thinking to myself, oh, okay, he's gonna tell Jacob what he needs to do now. So and that was interesting conversation as it progressed because he mentioned a specific official that he thought she didn't do a very good job, and yet she is an NFL official. I don't know if you remember that conversation.
Yo, I do. I definitely do. Yeah, yeah. It's funny. So I think one of the really cool things for me is getting to know so many people coast to coast, right? Figuring out what people do, their backgrounds. when somebody puts down on their application, when they to come work for us, they'll say they worked 3 Super Bowls. What they left off was the 7U Mighty Might Super Bowl of their hometown.
Yeah.
But then we go all the way up to we have D1 officials, we have D2 officials, and we have people who work in the NFL. And I say people plurally because it's not just one now. We have a few that do. And that's something I think is really cool, and it brings such a really cool group together. But like to your point, people who know me, they don't realize that I know all these people, and they don't know people's accolades and their resumes. So they don't see a person. So they're like, oh, that's probably Joe Schmo from Walmart down the road. And it's like, no, this person's, they know what they're doing. We didn't just pick them up, working the cash register. And then of course we've dealt with those folks before. So it's the best of both worlds in my mind.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of new dynasty, I know they'll be in 5s and 6s contact. I think they're doing like every non-contact format too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I know that they won a couple non-contact tournaments, and out in the West Coast there probably won't be YTG. I don't think YTG is coming out to this one necessarily. Plus, most of them were all just in Finland. So is that you got any early predictions without looking at the team list?
Not offhand, man. To be honest with you, I don't look at the team lists on purpose. So I don't ever, I don't look at the drafts on purpose. I don't try to look at the matchups until we get to the field, and then I go, oh, Ant's playing, Zane, I'll throw a name of somebody who never, never around anymore. But yeah, I mean, I don't really look at the teams that are and who they're playing. I more look at like what formats, how many number, I look at more of the officials of who we got there.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of the officials, what are you doing in the next couple of weeks to just get your officials ready for this tournament?
So I mean, we have our group chats where we're talking in there. I try to give as many situations as I can. Try to get people looking at some clips, videos. Say, hey, if you see this right here, what have you got? If this happens, what happens here? Try to put them in situations that I know they're going to get put into, just so that way they're prepared. They're able to do the right thing, and they're able to respond accordingly. Of course, I'll be around, with the other directors to try to do the best we can to, put out any fires or anything that needs to be done. But yeah, it's communicating as much as we can and trying to get everybody as prepared as possible.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of a scenario, I know that we saw this in Finland. We've noticed this. Florida State has been doing it a lot lately. So I just want to take this opportunity to just clear the air now, so that so that the Curry Bombers aren't trying to do a sideways snap and pull it off, because I know that they're cooking up a play in their head already to do something like that. So Jacob, please explain the rule about a sideways snap.
It's so simple with flag or with USA flag. The ball has to be snapped between the center's legs. If it goes to the side, it can't be, you can't lollipop it to them, toss it to them. You have to snap it between your legs to the quarterback, all the way from youth all the way to our 35 and up divisions. There's no side snaps, no shuffle snaps, or whatever you want to call it. It's a cool look. To be honest with you, I don't understand how they get away with it, but that's just me.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's my next question is why is that something that's happening? It just seems so unnatural to me.
To be honest with you, I don't know.
Yeah.
I told myself I was going to look it up in the NCAA rule book just to see, because that's where it started, right? That's who pretty much gave the green light for everybody doing it. And I went to go look and never actually sat down to read about it. And I still don't completely understand how the ball doesn't have to go between your legs to snap it. But I guess somewhere, somehow, some way, somebody found a loophole. and, made them aware. At that level, the officials usually the crew chief and, another official will usually meet with the coaches before the game and just say, hey, if there's any kind of trick plays, give us a heads up. So that way, just in case, like we want to know, so we're prepared and we're able to be in the right positions and stuff. And if there's, if there's any, legality or legitimacy questions to them, obviously you can answer it there to make sure there's no issues. And I'm sure, those guys went over it with them and, they probably said, yeah, according, with the rules, it's legal. So
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Yeah, well, and to bring up that point, I want to say this is probably like 1% of players, but on occasion I have had a player come up to me either prior to the game or prior to their offense getting on the field next. Hey, let me ask you this: is this allowed? Is it?
Yeah.
Can we, if it's aired out, can we lateral, or force? Okay, if we lateral it twice, what happens? It's a very small percentage, but when that
Mm-hmm.
happens, that's so smart. You have officials on the field that are a resource, and it's not
Absolutely.
giving any team an advantage. If you ask a question about a rule and you're not yelling at them, guess what? They probably will respond and give the answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, officials are humans just like the players. If you talk to them with a shred of respect, they're going to give it right back to you. They're going to do the best they can, because at the end of the day, they don't want to have to make hard calls. They don't want to have to make, put themselves in problematic situations. They want to have just an easy day, and enjoy the game as well. Um, as much as the players are. So if you have a play like that or something, different, ask them about it. Hey, am I going to be okay to do this? And if they don't know, they're going
yeah,
to tell you to talk to me. And then if
yeah,
I don't know, I'm going to get the answer for you within the next few minutes. So
yeah, for sure. Well, I feel like there's always some crazy scenario that gets cooked up in my head, and I'm always trying to ask you things, especially when you are juggling seven things at one time as well. So just to throw you off a little bit more. So I just,
it's
you
all
know,
good, man. I look, it helps me, man. It keeps me sharp. So
yeah, no, for sure. So I know, last week was so much fun because we were definitely talking about flag football in the 90s and 2000s, and I don't know about you, but after the show I went down the rabbit hole and I started going into YouTube, and I was looking up these games. Now I knew from Colorado, I knew about the Roswell tournament, and I
yeah.
knew that was always a big deal. But again, there's somebody in Colorado that claims to have won like 300 championships in flag football, and part and part of those championships is in Roswell. Now, I
Yeah.
found a video about Roswell. Now, they definitely had different divisions, and they
Oh
had
yeah.
I think they called it like the armchair division,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that.
Couch
And so that was,
potato. Yeah.
yeah, so something like that. And then there was the show me the money, and that's where it was like 15 grand or whatever. So I stumbled upon a video that was like MOB and Goose Cruise and Tronky, looking very young, looking slim. He did not have a hat on, which was
Mm-hmm.
amazing to me, but
Yeah.
but he was slinging it. Did you happen to look at any of those videos over the
I
last week?
I look I look at some of the Let It Fly videos. I've seen some of the Roswell videos, man, and it was a really cool tournament. I'm sure it would have been really cool to be a part of. Some of the
Yeah.
stories I've heard about that tournament are absolutely wild. I used to hear that they would have people on a megaphone, middle of the day, come out and say, "Hey, we need more refs. If you want to come ref, come to this place. We're gonna give you $10 a game or however much it was." And we'll give you a t-shirt. And they were just throwing, moms and sisters and, little brothers and just random people on the field just because they needed somebody. Nowadays,
Yeah.
imagine if I were at a tournament, I come over the intercom and say, "Hey, I need officials," we'd be run out of town. Um,
Yeah.
we have other resources for if something happens, obviously, but yeah, man, things like that. There's a certain appreciation. It's a certain experience, and it's there's a certain luster, I guess is the word I'm looking for to to have people go to those. And we had our kind of our own not Roswell, but like kind of our own tournament similar to that in North Carolina down at the Carolina Panther Stadium. It was its own thing. You played with 6 players. You 3 back-to-back games basically. One official a field, and half the time they didn't know what they were doing. But you went for the experience. Nobody won. I think there was one division that won money, but the rest of us didn't. We were just there just to play and have a good time. But yeah, man, it's fun to see those videos and see how things were back 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. Now, speaking of those videos, I think this is an important point to bring up to you, Jacob,
Okay.
is that we tried this NFL versus flag players 30 years ago. And I it's on YouTube. Everybody can look it up. It is on YouTube. If you look it up, the NFL, they showed up. They did not practice at all. They did not half of them didn't even know the rules. Jacob, what was the result of that game of the
All right.
pro flag
So,
football players against the NFL players?
all right. So I'm going to answer your question, and I have a follow-up statement with it. Okay.
Okay.
The answer to your question is the pros won. Okay. The follow-up is look at the teams that the pros played. It's very comparable to, you had some teams that were good. You had some teams that would be solid B, maybe in the A brackets for us or our pro brackets. But the majority of the teams, you look at some of these guys and it's like, okay, like you're like a solid like comp player. You're not the cream of the crop. I think George with Goose Crew was a pretty, it was an exception to that from what I could see. With his, with the group of guys he went out there with. But, for the most part, like we have guys who are training, who are just out of the NFL that would be playing in this, just out of college versus players who, back then there wasn't, this big, push for like former pro athletes or former, college athletes that need an outlet. Back then it was, late 20s, early 30s, guys that were just out there playing for fun.
Yeah.
I think times have
Okay,
definitely changed for that.
so it sounds like what you're saying is that George and Pat's era was just watered down. Anything that they accomplished was just
That's not what I
meaningless.
said at all. Not at all,
There's
man.
no goat from that era, is what you're telling me.
Not
That's
at all. Not at all. I'm going based off of what I saw from the YouTube videos of the Let It Fly division. I'm not going off of, because a lot of teams didn't play in that. Plus, I think if I understand right, Let It Fly was single elimination.
Oh, okay.
So if you were, you have one bad game, your team could have been completely dominant. You're out. You're done. You're toast.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah, I know that there's always a comparison with the AFFL game, and they always talk about that. And to me, I just feel like that comparison, like let's stop talking about that, because the team that Fighting Cancer played, even though they were supposedly pros, I mean, they had like 1 or 2 guys that were, really NFL stars. I mean, it's not, to me, it's not comparable to say, okay, if Patrick Mahomes and the stars of the NFL line up against Hoosh and the stars of the national team, you can't compare what the AFFL did. Am I wrong in saying that?
I think that's fair, and the reason I think that's fair because if you look at the team that the pros had, number one, to be honest with you, I'm not 100% confident that was the best team of the pros. I think they had the best athlete within their group in Jason Avant. Jason Avant was fantastic. Seneca Wallace was the quarterback for that team. I think Nate Robinson was on that team, a basketball player.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. There was a few other guys that weren't as notable where you had Mike Vick in that bracket. You had, oh gosh, ironically enough, fun fact, Vince Young was in the amateur bracket and lost that year.
Oh wow.
Lost early. I think he lost his first or second game. He didn't. I don't think he made it out of the first weekend.
No.
But a lot of people forget about that. There. I would be interested. Do you remember the inception of AFFL? It was Mike Vick. It was forget who was on the other team. They basically created two teams. It was like Terrell Owens, Chad Johnson, several other guys. Like there was several like actual pros, like former pros, pretty close that came out of retirement or were retired. That played. I would like to see like the best of that team put together to play Fighting Kansas. They probably would have given them a lot better of a game. It wouldn't have been like, what was it, like 26-6 or something?
Yeah.
Not saying I still think Fighting Cancer would have won, and they probably would have won by a couple of scores. But as far as from a competitive standpoint, I think you would have seen a much better game.
Gotcha. Okay, so final hot seat question. George and Pat, it was such a fun conversation. I talked to them about their matching up against each other. It sounds like George clearly won. He blew him out. But okay, so let's just say in Tampa, I know these guys are probably a little older for the 35 plus, but let's say we have a 45 plus division, and George puts together a team, and Pat puts together a team. Who you taking based off of those guys being the quarterback?
Oh man, I'm gonna say Pat.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Pat, and I'm gonna say Pat because knowing both of them right now, I don't think George plays near as often as he used to. I know he played a couple years ago at Worlds, but Pat still plays. Pat still, is still in the circles where he's still pretty active, even with the 35 and up guys. He's still, he's still evolving with his concepts. Not saying George isn't, but I think I'd give it to Pat. Give Pat the edge.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. That was easy. See, why can't you do that when I got two other guys on the
You asked
you
them when you
just
had them on the podcast.
it just every time I ask you a question when there's other guests on, you're dodging it. You don't want to answer, but it's just you and me, and you're just like, oh, okay, Pat, no problem. Now it just seems
Different
like
questions.
you did throw George under the bus a couple times this episode, so I'm gonna.
How did I throw him under the bus?
Well, you said his team was no good against the NFL.
That's definitely not what I said. I said
Oh, okay.
I said his team was above and beyond what some of the
Oh,
other
I got
teams that
you.
you saw on Let It Fly. See, there you
Yeah.
go, trying to dice up my words. Thought we had this new thing where we were done throwing each other under the bus. Okay. All right.
Well, it's close to the end of the show. I got to do a little bit,
Oh, okay. That's cool. All right.
So, all right. Speaking of that, close to the end of the show, Jacob, final thoughts for the night.
Final thoughts, man. It's been a nice little break, kind of having some time to recoup, get things going, get things ready for some of these fall tournaments, and get ready for Worlds. I've almost got the application. If you're tuning into us and you're one of our officials that works for us for USA Flag, I'm actually really excited. We're really close to having the application ready. And my goal was, these last couple of weeks, try to get it out. I'm pretty sure it's going to be out, by the end of this week. We'll get that rolling. I'm really excited to see what we kind of bring and what we've built, the last couple of years, and see how it all comes together. There's a couple new avenues we're using and a couple new things we're going to be doing this year with the officials, and I'm so excited for it all. So I'm really excited for that. So that's kind of where I'm at. Again, we're doing, you're doing big things with this. We're getting more and more people and views and stuff like that. So I'm just, a lot of good things are going the right way. So I'm really excited for all of that.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like the last few weeks, been able to interact and have conversations with international officials. Being able to highlight officials doing their job and doing it well. But most of all, I want to be the one to say I want to invite international officials to come to Tampa in Worlds. There's going to be a lot of international teams, so just get on the plane with your your fellow countrymen and women and just travel out. It
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be that big of a deal. But I have had a few guys reach out that I didn't know at all, and they're talking about Tampa, and it's getting exciting. So that I think that's
It's
so amazing. Yeah.
that's
So
probably the coolest thing, man. I'm so I think I think we've talked about it a couple of times. We talked to Coop about it as well. My goal was 15 international officials this year. That's kind of aggressive given the last couple of years where we've been. Usually, I think last year we had what, 4? We went from 1 to
yeah,
4 to, like I said, to this year I wanted 15, and I think we're gonna hit over 20. Canada's really excited to come. Mexico, we've got a couple of really good strongholds of people, and then Europe is really starting to show out and talk to us, and we've even got an official in Australia who's potentially wanting to fly over.
yeah, and I guess there's that guy from the Cayman Islands that
The
might
what?
come.
Who? Not the way he's been
Have
talking.
you?
He's been talking reckless lately. If you're listening to this, Dean, I'm going to tell you right now. When you talk trash to me about my terrible Carolina Panthers, which I know are horrible, all I read is, man, I can't make it to Tampa. That stinks. You guys are going to have so much fun without me. I really wish I could be there. That's all I'm reading. I mean, am I wrong?
No, I mean you gotta defend. What is it? Pound? I don't understand.
Look, right now the phrases keep pounding. Sam Mills
Oh
donned it when he was going through some of his cancer treatments before he passed. But yeah, right now the mantras keep getting it's because we're just week after week. We picked right back up from where we were last season. It's
yeah.
brutal, man. It's tough. But Dean, keep it up, buddy. That's
Hey,
all I'm gonna
so
say.
I don't know if you've had a chance to check out the merch that you set up, but the merch is it's amazing. I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see people wearing it. But we do have merch, so go onto Instagram on the link tree, and it'll take you right to the link. It's easy to order, and you can get if you want a baby seat with the clocks running on there, you can get it. You can get
Yeah, you can get literally anything with Jordan's ugly mug on it.
but we are everywhere. We got Facebook kickstarted again. We had a little issue with Facebook. Now it's going again. Instagram, Twitter, now called X, TikTok, Threads. All those things have lots of clips and content and stuff to watch. It doesn't matter if it was posted 3 weeks ago; it's still relevant. These
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
they're fun. We talk about rules. We bring on directors from all over the country, officials from all over the world. This is exciting stuff, and we are looking towards 2028. And so, with this show, we are doing the same thing, and we are going to continue to grow and adapt. And just we want as many people in this flag football community involved. And we're doing things a little different because we're coming from an official's perspective, directors that share things as well. So you probably won't see a lot of players on this podcast because there's plenty of players have plenty of opportunities to speak. So
Yep.
nothing against the players, but ultimately we want to give the officials and directors and the people that help put on these tournaments, make them possible. We want to give them shine, and we want to give them the opportunity to kind of share their stories and their passion about flag football. So ultimately, the best experience for this podcast is right here on YouTube, and so you've got to check it out. Definitely subscribe, follow, share. But if you are somebody that likes to listen to a podcast, any platform available, we're on. So check it out. Definitely, like I said, follow, like, share, talk to people about it. Show our clips to your grandma because that's how we spread the word. And ultimately, if you don't know the rules and you show up to San Diego Flag Fest and you're over here trying to do a sideways snap, well, you only have yourself to blame because we explained it to you in an easy way right here on this show. So So there we go, Jacob. Thank you so much for stepping into the limelight of being the co-host of this show now, and I appreciate you. And have a good night.
Hey, you too, man. Absolutely.
All right.